Beth,
He
being
was
a
amazing, by the way, in the movie.
she's amazing, and
General.
it must be tough working with her husband Dylan and with you guys. Never
They
mind.
are so delightful. They are the most delightful couple.
They're wonderful. And yeah, we had a bit of a like a couples retreat in a sense, and we made a movie.
Well, that's kind of what Adam Sandler does. I think he just goes on vacation with a camera.
Yeah, it's a great plan.
I
I
mean,
don't
I
blame them.
I kind of get it. Working
Yeah.
with your friends is the best.
It truly is. Beth Dover,
Yes.
you're known for your comic roles, but this is, something totally different for me.
Yeah,
Being
me too.
being in the comic world, is it an easy step to do dramatic?
Well, it was a challenge for me. I was a little bit trepidatious at first, a little nervous because yes, I'm known more for my comedic acting and all of that. But I knew I was in good hands with Joe, and it was also a fun challenge for me to take on a horror film or a thriller. And I get to work with my husband, so it's great. It was so fun, and it's cathartic to run around in the woods with an axe.
As a director, though, Joe, is it a bit claustrophobic to film in such a confined space?
Um, yeah, a little bit. It was manageable. We were very fortunate to get that location. We had terrific cooperation and help and generosity from the community there in Idaho. In particular with the Idaho Department of Lands, that were allowed us to film in an active fire tower there, and it just really made the film special, I think. And yeah, but there were limitations to the tower. In fact, we only were able to have about 5 people at the top of that tower. So if you do the math, that's myself and my cinematographer and Beth and the AD and maybe and the sound person. And so it was tight in there, but we managed, and everyone brought their A game.
Yeah, it's just a wonderful film in the way of, stripping down someone, bit by bit. And Beth, you do such a great job in understanding that process of doing horror. Are you a fan of the horror genre?
I am a fan of the horror genre. I mean, I'm married to Joe, who's a giant fan. So, he's given me an education in that way. But when I was young, I was a big fan of Stephen King, and I would read It and The Stand and all of that. I did love horror from an early age, not as much as this guy, but I definitely did.
Yeah, this was horror was my first love. And I know for many people out there, understandably, this is like out of the blue, like what's going on? Here's Charles Boyle, directing a movie about a nightmare on a mountain. But this was a love that I've had since I was 12, 13, reading Fangoria magazines and Stephen King, and making movies myself, little horror movies with Super 8. So this is kind of a return to a childhood dream that I've had for quite some time.
I have also been a fan of great horror films, and was a dear friend of Forey Ackerman, who created Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine.
Wow. Yeah.
Would go to his house with my buddy Rick Baker in high school, and we'd celebrate Halloween there. So
kidding.
Yeah,
well, I mean, you can imagine how influential Rick Baker was for me. I was putting together kind of food color dye in water to create fake blood, and all of that stuff. Like, so he was a big mentor, or influence, I should say.
Yeah, I mean Don Post as well. Those great masks. But getting back to the film,
yeah.
There is a certain pacing that a horror film has to have, and you hit it. I mean, this is spot on. Horrible as
yeah. It's thank you. The movie, my favorite horror movies have been those that really dive into the kind of psychological drama, and slow burn horror movies, Paranoia. The Shining and Repulsion were 2 very big guideposts for this movie, as well as Philip Kaufman's Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the Paranoia in that movie, even Amityville Horror, and the kind of terror that a structure can bring to a film, and the presence of structure can bring to a horror movie. And so they were all big influences for me in making this movie. But pacing and the music, soundtrack, the score
Yeah, I was
are
gonna comment
super
on
That
that.
important.
made a huge difference for
It's
sure.
amazing, and it just underlines everything perfectly.
Incredible Canadian composer, Steph Copeland, created that score. And when we met, she was also a horror fan. And I said, so we talked a lot about, Carpenter and Bernard Herrmann and all the greats there. And I said, just make the score that you would want to hear as a horror fan, this music is representing what's in Kate's head. The whole movie is from Kate's POV. And so I think there's a lot of fear and paranoia in Kate's head. And so let's hear that.
I'm glad you mentioned Bernard Herrmann because I was going to bring that up too. There is something so noticeable about the score that it's like a Bernard Herrmann score.
Yeah, especially the opening theme where she's taking her trip to the unknown, and Bernard Herrmann has always been able to kind of have that sound of like stabbing and impending doom, but adventure. There's this idea of like she's going into this new but unknown place. Is it dangerous? Is it not? And so I'm glad that you were able to grab that.
Beth, I mean, I loved you in Children's Hospital, and of course, Orange is the New Black, and you do so many different characters. What was enticing, other than working with your husband, because but what was so enticing about your character, Kate?
Well, obviously working with Joe is a big one, but this is something that I don't get to do a lot. I wouldn't normally get to be the lead of a psychological horror thriller and really get to delve into all of that kind of trauma and PTSD. So it was a great challenge for me to get to do, and very cathartic in a lot of ways as well. And yeah, I really loved it, and I love playing a lot of different characters. So I'm known mainly for comedy stuff, but I was a nerdy theater major trying to be a serious actress.
We
so
were
it's
all
exciting to get to do, right?
we were all nerdy theater majors.
I know. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Filming in Idaho has got to be both lovely and traumatic at the same time because I live in Salt Lake and we're just a few miles from Idaho.
I love it. Wasn't traumatic at all, but I know what you mean by that.
It was treacherous.
It was treacherous, at least up the top of that mountain. But we were very lucky to work with a stunt coordinator named Mallory Thompson, who just really had our backs. Idaho is absolutely stunning, that wilderness, and that community was so generous. Priest Lake and the Coolin community there, because we can't make a movie if the town doesn't want you there. And we were guests in their home. That's how we approached it. And I think all of us had a lot of mutual respect for, who we were and what we were doing. I think I was lucky enough to have a crew and cast that were very professional, that worked very hard. And there was evidence of that when we shot the movie. And people respond to something like that. They in a very positive way. We're not there to raise hell. We're there to do a very hard job, and we need help doing it. And they definitely provided that.
But in terms of the terrain, it was pretty treacherous getting up to that outpost. It was like a 45-minute drive up and 45-minute hour up, hour down. So we were losing about 2 hours of shooting every day just to get up that mountain. And we had the Jeep Club of Idaho or something taking us up there.
The local Jeep Club there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was very cool experience,
It's lovely to work in a town where they're not jaded. Like, if you work in LA, it's,
right. Yeah.
Cup of coffee costs you $18.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that, and also, like we were saying, we hired the Jeep Club because the last thing we wanted was like a 22-year-old PA from Los Angeles trying to drive Dylan Baker and these amazing actors and my crew up these switchbacks, right?
Yeah. Oh, wow. In our final moments we have, gosh, thank you so much for this wonderful interview. Beth, what do you think audiences are going to take away from watching Outpost?
Well, I think, this particular movie, while it's a horror film, it really does deal with one woman's PTSD and just, all of that. And I think it explores it in I know it's a delicate subject, and I think Joe did a great job exploring that and also creating a fun horror vibe as well. So I'm excited for people to see it. I think hopefully it'll spark some conversation. And yeah,
I think just horror fans are going to go nuts over it.
I think so. I hope
It's
so.
got that touch of Alien in it. It's got that touch of Jaws, even. So I mean, yeah, it is just so well written, Joe.
Well, thank that's very flattering. I appreciate you saying that, and I hope the horror community opens their arms and beyond as well. The movie fans overall. So.
Well, after this, I'm going to reach out to you on social media. I want to do a longer interview with you and talk in depth about horror and all of that. But
happy to do that.
Let's do a remake of The Crawling Eye.
Oh, that's nice deep pull.
I don't know that one.
I'll tell you about it.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway,
Tony, absolutely. Please do reach out. I'd be happy to talk more. And thank you so much for having us here.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. And have a great day.
You too.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks, Tony.